Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully you all are having a wonderful day today. So when it comes down to it, I thought that I would review this little video that I found very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video all in all by Mr. Boxing Eagle. And I just thought that this was going to be a very interesting video to review because this is going to be me talking a little bit about the heavyweight scene, of course, during the time frame of when I was growing up watching boxing. And of course, the heavyweight scene of my time growing up consisted with fighters like a Wladimir Klitschko, a Tyson Fury, an Anthony Joshua, a Deontay Wilder, now of course an Alexander Usyk, etc., etc. But anyways, the big question is overall about this heavyweight era is not only who the best is. Well, I pretty much think that that question and that debate has pretty much been put to rest. I think that it clearly is Tyson Fury. I don't think that there really is any debate about that whatsoever. And then, of course, overall, another big question is, what is the biggest win in Tyson Fury's career when it comes down to it? And, of course, Tyson Fury apparently recently said that he actually believed that it was Deontay Wilder. He even said that Deontay Wilder, that in his opinion, that win over Deontay Wilder was even over his win over that of Wladimir Klitschko. Now, do I necessarily think that that Deontay Wilder is a greater fighter than that of a Wladimir Klitschko? Not necessarily, but I can maybe see why Tyson Fury would think that the Deontay Wilder win was the biggest win of his career, because Tyson Fury, of course, had to come back into the sport off of a certain amount of mental and also physical issues when it came down to it. He had to pretty much outbox Deontay Wilder quite favorably in that first fight to even get a draw when it came down to it. And then, of course, in the rematch, I think that Tyson Fury had to become the best version of himself that he ever has been. And I think that that Tyson Fury that I've seen in the Deontay Wilder rematch, I think that that pretty much is the best version of Tyson Fury that I've personally ever seen. It was him overall, in my opinion, at his most calculated, his most intelligent when it came down to it. And I think him all in all with the most amount of multi-dimensional tools that he's ever had in his tool set. So Tyson Fury, I think when he takes a look at Deontay Wilder, do I necessarily 100% think that maybe he believes that Deontay is as good as what Wladimir Klitschko was? Maybe he doesn't believe that he was as skilled, but there is a possibility that maybe Tyson Fury does believe that Deontay Wilder was the biggest threat that he ever has faced. Perhaps. But we're going to talk about that in this video. When it comes down to it, I'm going to be talking about, do I believe that Deontay Wilder actually is the bigger win on Tyson Fury's record? Do I believe that he actually is greater than Wladimir Klitschko, or what perspective maybe we can talk about it from? But anyways, let's get into the video. Let's see what Mr. Eagle has to say.
Man, it's over. Tyson Fury finally admits that Deontay Wilder is his best victory, even over Klitschko. I'm about to talk about that more. Stay tuned to this video. Subscribe to the channel. Y'all know what it is. And he rates Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Oh my God. To this day, over his Klitschko win.
You know, like I said, Boxing Eagle, he's one of these guys all in all that, especially whenever he talks about Canelo, he talks about alleged man fans. I don't think all in all that you can really talk about alleged man fans when you overall talk about Deontay Wilder the way that you talked about him. I mean, the way that this guy was talking, he was acting like his damn wife. He was overall Google guy and then oogling overall over his abs and his body. It's like, what kind of a man does that?
Make sure you come in, smash the like button. 2022 is up. Your boy out here working. If you like boxing, this is your one-stop shop. Stop playing with me. Without further ado, roll the clip.
Have you seen this space-age roofing product that lowers energy bills without solar panels or batteries? This previously unknown product will soon be...
Roll the clip. Now, before I play the clip, I think it's important for me to say this. So, this whole segment, the question wasn't really even about Deontay Wilder, but Tyson Fury, in his answering, he was asked a question during the interview, and during this process, that's when he spilled the beans and let it be known that Wilder, in fact, is his best win. But the question was really about ranking Dillian Whyte, and I think it's important to know because, in my opinion, in the world of boxing, the UK is heavily biased towards their fighter, and not in a good way. Not saying like, oh,
Well, you can argue that the UK is biased towards their fighter, but I mean, that's just going to be common sense. It is what it is. Of course they are. And let's be real, Ego, it's not like you're not biased towards certain fighters either. That's why you went on that idiotic narrative of Tyson Fury allegedly cheating. It just is what it is. But anyways, when it comes down to it, like I said, the UK is not the only country or not the only area where they're biased towards their fighters. As we all know, Ego is very biased towards his own fighters as well, the fighters that he likes. But it is what it is. But once again, just to talk about, do I believe that Tyson Fury believes that Deontay Wilder is the biggest win of his career? I think that more than likely he may believe that he is the biggest win of his career because of certain circumstances, and maybe he even truly believes that Deontay Wilder would beat even a prime Wladimir Klitschko. In my view, the biggest win of Tyson Fury's career, you could debate it maybe as Deontay Wilder. I probably would still debate it as Wladimir Klitschko because I think Klitschko was the greatest fighter that Tyson Fury has ever fought, hands down. But at the end of the day, I think I understand why he says that Deontay Wilder was the biggest win of his career.
Being factual, I'm talking about bias to the point where they just cherish their own fighters to a point where it's not even realistic to what we're seeing.
Right, but you do the same thing. That's why you protect Gervonta Tank Davis, Deontay Wilder, pretty much any fighter overall. Let's be real, that has your own same complexion. Let's just be real. All right, it is what it is.
John Ryder versus Danny Jacobs. The UK commentators giving credit to John Ryder and making it look like Danny Jacobs is doing nothing. So,
actually, to be quite honest with you, and I know a lot of people, like I said, they claim that was a robbery. That fight was not a robbery. And I already did commentary on that not too long ago. I thought the fight was very competitive, and Danny Jacobs made it way too competitive. And obviously, Danny Jacobs, whether he thinks he got robbed or not, he obviously didn't have too much of an issue with it because he didn't really storm out the ring. He gave the handshake to John Ryder when it came down. I know maybe he just did that to be respectful, but the coach in Danny Jacobs' corner, he didn't look too upset either. So what that tells me is that they even potentially knew that they could have lost that fight. Danny Jacobs didn't look outraged when a split decision overall was read aloud. So what that tells me is that even Danny Jacobs in his own corner knew that there was a potential that they could have lost that fight. And in my opinion, Danny Jacobs, he was throwing more, but a lot of the punches just were not landing cleanly.
I don't even think the reporter who asked Tyson Fury, the UK reporter who asked Tyson Fury the question, he wasn't even using this platform to big up Deontay Wilder, but inadvertently Tyson Fury does just that. Again, roll the clip.
In terms of Dillian White himself, so you come away with the victory, which obviously you're anticipating. Where does he rank in terms of your wins?
So he says, if you beat Dillian White as you would intend, where do you rank a win over Dillian White? So the question really wasn't even about Wilder, and listen to what Fury said.
You're anticipating. Where does he rank in terms of your wins?
My wins, it'd probably be like Deontay Wilder, then Klitschko.
Boom. He said my wins would be first Deontay Wilder, that is my best victory, and then Wladimir Dr. Steelhammer Klitschko.
So it'd probably be like Deontay Wilder.
What I'll say is this, like I said, I think I understand why Fury is saying the things that he is saying, and I think that he may even have more respect for that of a Deontay Wilder than what he had for Wladimir Klitschko. Because when he fought Deontay Wilder, at least what I'll say about Deontay Wilder is this, he gave it all of his heart, he tried overall his best, and overall he was able to give Fury maybe even a little bit of problems, maybe with each and every fight, well, besides the second one. In that fight against Wladimir Klitschko, Fury basically fought a very timid, very overall scared Wladimir Klitschko because I think once Wladimir Klitschko really saw the movement and really saw the multi-dimensional skill set of that of a Tyson Fury and the way that he can move, the way that he could adapt overall, especially for his size, I think Wladimir Klitschko really took a look at him and said, wow, I've never really seen anything like this before in the ring. And on top of that, this dude overall is even bigger than I am. So when it comes down to it, I think Klitschko, when it came down to it, he was a bit timid in that fight. And I think that he was a little bit perplexed because I don't think all in all he was expecting Tyson Fury really to be that skilled.
Then Klitschko.
Okay.
Then Derek Chisora. Then probably Otto Wallin.
Well, Tyson Fury says, I don't know, that Derek Chisora or Chisora, however you pronounce his name, that would be a greater win than Dillian White. But I think Tyson Fury, I think he knows that Dillian White more than likely that he would be a very good win on his resume. I mean, Dillian White, all in all, do I think that he's going to beat Fury? Not more than likely. But at the end of the day, Dillian White, what I do think he is that I do think he's a solid top contender. So Tyson Fury, he would have to perform his best in that fight, and it would be one of the bigger wins of his career. Probably the third biggest win. Like I said, the biggest one of his career, in my opinion, if you're just talking about in the perspective of who, in my opinion, was the greatest fighter that he ever fought, then yes, it clearly would be Wladimir Klitschko. But if you're also maybe talking about the greatest win just in terms of the perspective of him really having to dig down deep and not only that, but come back from boxing and, maybe even toughen up a little bit mentally, and really give it every single, ounce that he had in each and every fight, it probably would be Deontay Wilder. Once again, is that me saying that Deontay Wilder, that he's greater than Wladimir Klitschko? No. I don't think that you can really ever argue that. But what I will say is that I think I understand where Tyson Fury is coming from.
And then I would say him. Oh, no, Steve Cunningham. And then him.
So Tyson Fury, I mean, just judging by what he's saying, he doesn't rank Dillian White as, the guy to beat or anything because he put him behind pretty much 5 of his other wins or whatever. I didn't really count, but there were several other wins that he ranked. But most importantly, the focus of this video is that Tyson Fury himself...
Well, of course, Tyson Fury, he's known for doing this. What Tyson Fury basically does is, he may underplay the opponent. He did the same thing with Deontay Wilder, Wladimir Klitschko as well. So Tyson Fury, he's just known overall to try to get into people's heads. And maybe is there a part of him that maybe does not respect Dillian White that much? Maybe. Who knows? I don't know. But when it comes down to it, like I said, Tyson Fury is known for doing that, especially with his next known opponents. So we'll see what happens.
Ranks Deontay Wilder victory ahead of Dr. Steelhammer Klitschko. Now, the reason this is important, because during the build-up for Wilder Fury, there was a lot of beta male energy and emotional fans, and they played this man you see on the screen.
I love how Ego and Dante's Boxing Nation and some of these other channels, they talk about quote-unquote beta males or, emotional fans as if they aren't one. Like I said, you should have heard all the crying overall that these channels were doing, especially Ego, alleging that, oh, Wilder got cheated and all sorts of stupid bullshit when they came down to just please.
This day, Deontay Wilder. They said Deontay Wilder sucks, and
what I will say is this: in my opinion, Wilder, to a degree, will be remembered as a great fighter, but only to a certain degree. What I'll say is this: he certainly would not be in my top 10 heavyweights of all time. Could you maybe debate him in the top 20 if you wanted to? That would be up to you. In my opinion, excuse me, I would not really put him above certain heavyweights like that of a Riddick Bowe. I would not put him above heavyweights like a Wladimir Klitschko. I don't think I would put him above heavyweights maybe like... I certainly wouldn't put him above Larry Holmes. I'm not really even sure where I would rank Larry Holmes. I don't even think I would rank him above Mike Tyson. I don't necessarily know who else I would rank above him, or below him, really. Deontay Wilder, what I'll say is this. Just thinking about it off the top of my head without really creating a list, maybe he would make the top 20, but he also could be within that 25 to 30 range as well. But no doubt about it, Deontay Wilder, anyone who can get a win over him, especially during his prime, it is a decently great win.
He's Bum Squad and old media put this information out there in an effort to berate Deontay Wilder and suggest that he ain't beat no one, he ain't fought.
Right, but come on, Ego. I mean, you talk about this energy with Deontay Wilder. What about you with Canelo Alvarez? What about you with a certain amount of other fighters that you don't like? Now, I get your point when it comes down to it, but like I said, when I talk about new media and the LDBC, what they pretty much are is just, basically a different horn on the same devil. That's all it is. They're just different shades of gray. It is what it is. It's almost like CNN and Fox Sports and Fox News. It just is what it is. And basically what new media is, they're pretty much CNN.
No one. So again, the reason this is important is because old media told you that a win over Deontay Wilder was virtually worthless because Deontay Wilder, he only...
Did old media really say that? To, quote unquote ESPN, or was it really the fans that were saying that? In my opinion, of course, if we're being logical and objective, a win over Deontay Wilder, of course, is not useless. But what I will say is this: do I think that Deontay Wilder was as big of a win as a Vladimir Klitschko, or at least in terms of being the greater fighter? No, I don't think there's really any debate that you can debate that Deontay Wilder was greater than Klitschko. I don't think that there's really any debate whatsoever.
Fought old Luis Ortiz, and they did all this stuff to tear down and cut down Deontay.
Well, you say all in all that, people make the narrative that Deontay Wilder fought an old Luis Ortiz, but if we are going to go there, the first time that Wilder fought Luis Ortiz, I believe he was about 36 years old. Now, I'm not going to make I'm not going to make the excuse when it comes down to it that he fought an old Luis Ortiz, because Luis was undefeated, and I still think that was a very decent win. But if you're going to bitch and moan and complain about overall how people are making excuses there, weren't you one of the same guys that were basically saying that Anthony Joshua beat an old Wladimir Klitschko when he still was one of the top-ranked guys in the world? Weren't you still one of those guys that say that Canelo Alvarez, that he's fighting old and washed-up dudes? So, at the end of the day, like I said, keep that same energy, but we all know he's not going to.
Wilder and his accomplishments to make it look like it wasn't. But the only problem...
And it's no offense against Deontay Wilder. I got love for every single one of these fighters out here. No matter whether I agree with their personal views or not. But at the end of the day, when I just take a look at Deontay Wilder's record, is anyone really going to take a look at those 10 title defenses and say, oh my God, those are all-time great title defenses? Let's just be real. Deontay Wilder, usually when he had his title defenses, it usually was against bottom-of-the-barrel opponents. It just is what it is. I mean, I'm talking about guys like, not even just Bermane Stiverne in the rematch. I'm talking about guys like Dominic Breazeale and Artur Spilska and Johan Duhaupas and Eric Molina. Is anyone, none of these fighters are making the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry.
With that logic is from the horse's mouth in an unrelated...
To be honest with you, I don't even know if Luis Ortiz would make the Boxing Hall of Fame, because he never even was a legitimate champion. In my opinion, and I almost put everyone in the Boxing Hall of Fame, Luis Ortiz, in my opinion, would not be in the Boxing Hall of Fame. Well, debatably, but it's up to you.
Question from a UK reporter. Tyson Fury spilled the beans and let you know that Wilder is in fact his greatest win. So I think Wilder is owed an apology.
Well, I think Wilder's owed an apology for what? Anyway, when it comes down to it, all in all, but like I said, when it comes down to it, I think all in all that the greatest win of Tyson Fury's career, in my view, in terms of, like I said, the greatness of the fighter, I think you would have to say Wladimir Klitschko probably is the biggest win of his career. But I think I understand what Tyson Fury means. If you're talking about in terms of actually having to adapt, and all in all, him basically putting all of his, all of his weapons out there and basically going all in, then yeah, it might be Deontay Wilder. But would I say that Deontay Wilder is greater than Klitschko? No, I can't say that.
And I think no matter what Wilder decides to do with his career, he's had a phenomenal career. I personally would like to see him continue to fight, but it's his choice. But at the end of the day, Wilder doesn't get the credit that he's owed. People focus on his quote-unquote...
Well, you're one of these same guys that also say that Gennady Golovkin, that he really didn't overall have that many great title defenses, which to a degree is true. So, like I said, it all depends on consistency and having the same energy. And let's just be real. I'm not trying to upset anyone here, but we all know why ego is so big on Deontay Wilder. We all know why the main reason that is. All right, it just is what it is.
Flaws.
Actually, there could be a couple reasons. Not even just his complexion, but ego. Sometimes the way he talks, he might be a closeted homosexual,
and things like that. But in the grand scheme of things, Tyson Fury just told you, this trilogy, the wins over Wilder, that's my best work, even over Klitschko. See, everybody gives props to Klitschko and the Klitschko brothers as a heavyweight, but Tyson Fury, out his own mouth, he could have said Klitschko is his greatest win and accomplishment, but he didn't. He said it was Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder.
I don't think all in all that Tyson Fury has the same respect for Wladimir Klitschko as what he does for Deontay Wilder. Because I think Wladimir Klitschko, I think that Tyson Fury takes a look at him, and I think all in all that he says, you know what, I mentally broke him. And on top of that, when it comes down to it, they can be somewhat mentally broken. At least when I fought Deontay Wilder, yes, he didn't have the skill set of a Wladimir Klitschko, but he was able to give me more trouble within those 3 fights than ever what Wladimir Klitschko was within that one fight when it came down to it. So he may actually have more respect for Deontay Wilder. He may actually believe that Deontay Wilder would have beat a prime Wladimir Klitschko. And I understand his point. Do I actually believe that, once again, do I believe that Deontay Wilder is greater than Wladimir Klitschko? No, I do not. But I understand Tyson Fury's point.
And then Klitschko. So I think that's a testament to Wilder's ability, whether you like him or not. And again, for me, I just don't. I'm a huge fan of the underdog, and I don't think Wilder was treated right in this whole equation.
You're a huge fan of the underdog, or you're a huge fan of fighters with your own complexion for your protection. It is what it is. Come on, man.
In this whole situation. So on my channel, with my voice and everything I work for, we're going to give credit where credit's due. Tyson?
No, you're going to give credit where credit is due, all in all, if it's a fighter that you like. Let's be real. You don't give credit a lot of the times where credit is due. You didn't give it to Golovkin or Canelo Alvarez. You're still not giving it to Canelo Alvarez. So let's be real, all right? Let's keep it real, bro. All right, it is what it is. Anyway.
Fury, he also keeps saying that Wilder will whoop Anthony Joshua. So there's obviously a fondness or
I would not
a
even
level of respect from Tyson Fury, and he knows.
Sorry, could not pause the video. Anyway, I would not even personally put Deontay Wilder over that of an Anthony Joshua for this generation. And I know a lot of people, they would highly disagree. But at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua won way more belts in his career. He's a multiple-time, somewhat unified champion. He has a way greater resume. I don't even think that there's a debate about that. And he just has bigger wins. It is what it is.
Was how real Deontay Wilder.
Now, is that me saying that Anthony Joshua would 100% beat Deontay Wilder? No, but if they both retired today, who would be the greater fighter? In my opinion, it has to be Anthony Joshua. It just has to be. There's no categories, in my opinion, that Deontay Wilder beats him in.
It's big call. Tyson Fury is adamant.
Just in terms of all-around greatness. Now, if you want to actually go by all the categories, and if you want to talk about chin and, maybe overall, maybe even heart or mental toughness, then yeah, maybe we can go there. But when we talk about ranking them as an all-time great fighter, such as, and I count that somewhat within the skill set, but if you're talking about resume, Anthony Joshua beats him there. If you're talking about skill set, Anthony Joshua beats him there. If you're talking about overall, accomplishments, Anthony Joshua beats him there. All right. If you're talking about dominance, in my opinion, they're both around the same way. Now, some would say, well, how could you say that they're in the same in dominance? Anthony Joshua lost to two opponents, and, they weren't even Deontay Wilder or Tyson Fury. So shouldn't Deontay Wilder be ranked above Anthony Joshua because of that? I would understand the point, but at the end of the day, Anthony Joshua has a very, very good resume. And how do I know that Deontay Wilder would have not lost to an Alexander Usyk or Andrew Ruiz? Because he never really fought that consistent of good of fighters. It just is what it is. Like I said, the best fighter that he ever beat was Luis Ortiz. Very good fighter. But at the end of the day, is Luis Ortiz even on the same level as an Andrew Ruiz or an Alexander Usyk? I don't think so.
Deontay Wilder will knock out the bum Anthony Joshua in 3 rounds if they ever met. So Tyson Fury knows what it is.
Luis Ortiz was fortunate enough overall to even get out of that last fight against Charles Martin. Now, of course, he was decently old there, but Luis Ortiz, he's still pretty much somewhat at a decent point in his career. I just don't think Luis Ortiz, I always thought that he was a very good contender, but he pretty much, in my opinion, he's on that same level as Dillian White, Andrew Ruiz, Joseph Parker. That's where he is.
Great trilogy. He's clearly respects Wilder because he wouldn't have ranked him over a Klitschko win. Let me know how I did in this video. I'm the best in the business. That's all you really need to know. The best.
But anyways, that's really about it for this video. I just thought that was very particularly interesting, but that's going to be about it for this video. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll talk to y'all later.